Roger, go for deploy.
Hey gang, how's it going? So, today's episode is with a man named Robert Kabbas. So, Rob's one of the coaches down at Phoenix Weightlifting Club, which is where I train. He started Phoenix Weightlifting Club with my coach Ivan, actually, and he's just a really good oracle of weightlifting. He's competed at a super high level and he's coached high-level athletes for a very long time now. He's a dual Commonwealth gold medalist. He is an Olympic silver medalist, and he was the lightest man to ever clean and jerk 200 kilos at the time that he clean and jerked 200 kilos at about 87 kilograms. That was a little while ago, so things have changed. But it was a great conversation. Rob took us through a bit of history of his weightlifting and a lot about his training philosophies and his coaching philosophy. So it was a really good one. I hope you enjoy the show. Before we get into it, though, we have got sponsors, and they are Audible. So Audible is an audiobook warehouse, guys. It's basically an online warehouse where you can find over 200,000 audiobooks, and it's just such a great resource. I'm a very big fan of it. For example, I've got a business coach who recommended me a book, and the book was The E-Myth Revisited, about basically about the start of entrepreneurialism and knowing your role and where you sit. And it's just a really interesting read. So in between sessions, we have 2 weeks in between, and I'm tasked with reading a book. And I knocked out the E-Myth in a day while I was doing other things, listening to it through Audible. So that's been awesome. I've also got the Bulletproof Diet that I'm going through now. So whenever I'm house sitting at the moment with my girlfriend and we are walking the dogs at night, I take the dogs for a walk for half an hour, and I will listen to the Bulletproof Diet. So it's just a great way to get information in. Information is, you're just going to be a better person and a smarter person if you read or listen to audiobooks. So to get a free trial with Audible, go to www.audibletrial.com/ADVF radio. You'll also get a free audiobook with that. That is www.audibletrial.com/ADVF radio. So get on there, guys. We are also brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel. So we've just done something pretty awesome and released our Philippines trip. It's a couple of weeks in now. Tickets are starting to sell, and they're going to go fast like our Bali trip did. So the highlights are training with world champion Dmitry Klokov, ziplining. We do some free diving. We do a tour of a day tripping boat trip around islands all day, snorkeling, and a bunch of other stuff. We do some cliff jumping. We do tons of cool stuff with yoga and training every day. If you want something to compare it to, have a look at the social media, have a look back through our photos of the Bali trips that we just did and the reviews on our Facebook page. They were, we got, this is the greatest experience we've ever had. This changed my life, blah, 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 all that bullshit. But, if you want to jump on, then head to www.adventurefittravel.com. We've also got Everest up for sale, and we've got 1 ticket left on our CrossFit Games trip. 1 ticket, and it will not last long. So get in there and buy that ticket or any other. Anyway, here's the show. Alrighty, guys. Here we are, Adventure Fit Radio. I'm sitting with Rob Kabbas, and we're also Tommy and Mac have joined me today. Mac's back from Sydney, which is good.
G'day.
Tommy's going to start us off without a guitar and without a song with a tribute to Robert Kabbas.
Oh, man. All right. So does anyone want to give me a topic here? Apart from Rob Kabbas? Like a subtopic. Let's go. All right.
What's your favourite song?
Favourite song I'm listening to at the moment is
We should have prepared this.
Burn the Witch by Radiohead. So I can't probably acapella that one. I can do Trash in the Camp by Phil Collins, made by Tarzan the movie for the 1997 motion picture Tarzan. Wow. I'll try and feed in Rob Kabbas in one way or another here. Rob Kabbas. Welcome aboard, mate.
Thank you. I think you managed to put that in.
Yeah. Look, I didn't want to go so specific, but I got your name in, so I'm happy with that.
That's the best tribute we've had.
Okay.
So, Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Rob? So for our listeners, Robert is Olympic silver medalist, Commonwealth dual gold medalist. When did you start weightlifting? How did it all begin?
Okay, I started lifting when I was 13 years old, or just before I turned 14. I got introduced to the sport through my father and uncles, who all did weightlifting in Egypt, where I was born. And at the time, when they got introduced to weightlifting, Egypt was pretty much on top of the world in weightlifting. So they had an interest, which was a lifelong interest, and I just picked that up and went along with that.
Mm-hmm. And when you say your father and your uncle were weightlifters, did they compete at the highest level? Were they seasoned weightlifters? They were professional weightlifters, or they were?
No, not at all. I
Okay.
think my father eventually, or pretty soon, got into administration, and he was the secretary of the local Alexandrian Weightlifting Association. Alexandria is the city where I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncles more or less used to drift into weightlifting, then go and do something else, then always come back to weightlifting, which was their main love. But they just did it just for brothers to be doing something together, and they followed the championships and so on. And my uncle became my coach, and I think part of his input into my training was the fact that he didn't put that much into his own lifting and training, so he made sure that
seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, and then how long did you spend in Egypt before you moved over here to Australia?
We moved to Australia just before my 11th birthday. Well, actually, just on my 11th birthday, we left Egypt.
Yep.
and came to Australia. So I started my lifting here.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So we spoke with Jared Fleming in one of our previous shows that just got released this week, and he started at a similar age, 13. So how did it go? How did it go training at such a young age, and when did you start to take it seriously and look at competing?
I think I competed within 6 or 7 months,
Yep.
mainly because the school that I went to, which was Caulfield High School, also it was attended by Ivan Katz,
Yep.
who was
My
already
coach.
yes, your coach,
Yep.
who was already competing, and he saw me at school doing some weights, and asked me if I wanted to go down to the Hawthorn Weightlifting Club where he used to train. So I was in competition, as I said, within about 6 or 7 months. But even then, I think for the first 12 months, my uncle just concentrated on technique, just learning how to lift without pushing too much to maximums.
Did that get kind of boring without getting too aggressive with the word? Or just doing technique and stuff? Did you load the bar up much, or was it?
CrossFitter question.
Yeah.
This is what weightlifting is, Tommy.
Yeah.
It's about technique, mate.
Dude, you didn't just go to 100 kilos.
Hey, hang on, can I interrupt? How's it when your members come up to you like, oh, I'm just going to focus on technique today?
Yeah, I'll tell the fuck.
It's like,
You're going to focus on technique.
yeah.
All right, mate.
Oh, I'm not going to go heavy today. I'm just going to focus on my technique. Oh, really? Okay, no worries.
You're a loser.
Um,
No. Was it a lot of just barbell stuff, just broomstick work, or what?
No,
sort of
not
stuff you doing?
broomstick. No,
Yep.
not broomstick. I don't think you can learn too much with broomstick. It was reasonable weights, not ridiculously lightweight, because as they always say, if you practice technique always on light weights, you become good at lifting light weights. So it was
You
a
also need
combination
bit more
of things.
feel as well, don't you? If it's
Yeah,
too
yeah.
light,
You need to have some resistance there to develop good technique, and also to eliminate any fear of the weights, obviously. So it's a balanced thing, but I mean that's something I carried through almost in my whole career, that I very rarely went to maximums in training.
Really? We'll definitely touch on that once we get into the training aspect of it. So once you moved over to Australia, you're training at Caulfield with Ivan, and when did you? Was it as you're training as a youngster, as a youth? Was it different? Was it lighter? Was it only 2 or 3 days a week, or was it pretty consistent? When did you ramp it up and try and obviously you compete at the highest level? When did that become your aim?
I think from the first day that I tried lifting weights, because we came, as I said, from a background where the people that we knew in weightlifting were world champions.
Yep.
So it depends to a great deal on who introduces you to the sport and who are the people that you're looking at. If you go into a gym and the strongest guy there is lifting 100 kilos, then in the back of your mind, 100 kilos is there as a target to reach. If your first introduction to the sport is being introduced to someone who's a world champion, then you're aiming to become world champion.
100%.
So I guess from the first time that I was introduced to the weights, I was training at least 3-4 times a week. Not heavy, And often I would just drop into my uncle's house on the way from school and do some unscheduled training. So I was probably doing between 3 and 5 sessions from the get-go.
Yep. And when did you start competing for Australia and competing in international meets?
My first international, I was 19. It was the New Zealand Games.
Yep.
And I broke the junior Commonwealth record there. That was my first international representing Australia. But sometime earlier than that, when I was 16, the club, Hawthorn Weightlifting Club, organised an international trip that I went on with Ivan and a few of the other guys who went on to become Australian representatives. And it was something unheard of in those days, and just to make the contacts with people overseas. And it was organised by Paul Coffer, who himself was a very young and raw coach. But he's always had lots of vision, and his idea was to take our junior team away we ended up going to Iran,
Really?
England, Austria, and Germany.
This is on the one trip?
All on the one trip. We compete as juniors. We competed, I think, 5 times in 2.5 weeks. So it was pretty. It was pretty full on, and
Bulgarian.
and most of us got our best results.
Really?
On that trip. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
I don't think anyone came back with less than everyone lifted more overseas than we did back here.
Yeah. So are you telling us to compete 5 days in 2 weeks?
If you're between superstars? 16 and 18 years, 18 years of age, maybe it'll work.
You know, there's something in the air over there, or?
Hey, I don't know. It's just
that's cheating, mate.
I think we went from lifting at Hawthorn Weightlifting Club, which is pretty much like in the old days. It was pretty much like Phoenix, just a small gym, bricks and whatever else. And our first competition in Iran, we marched in behind a marching band with 3,000 people watching. So awesome. we were treated as if we were the national the national team. And
that must have been a good feeling.
It was good. 2 of the guys that were lifting against us in the Iranian junior team were in the army. So I think one of their platoons was ordered to attend and fill the stands.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And did that spur you on to want to just get more of that? What was the feeling like coming back from a trip like that?
Absolutely. As I said, quite a few of the lifters that came back from that team went on to represent Australia at senior level. So it was definitely an eye-opener and something that you wanted to get more of.
And let's, before we go on any further, let's talk about Ivan. Yes. That old bastard tells me every day how good he used to be, but I don't believe him.
just bearing in mind on previous shows we called Ivan short, called him a dwarf, and you've got to remember I've never even met him.
Not to mention ugly.
Yeah.
I've never even seen him. Yeah. I don't even know what he looks like.
I'm really not looking forward to my programming next week.
5x5s.
Ivan was the top junior in the state when I started lifting, so obviously he was someone that was good to to train with.
Yeah. You're living in the past, though, Robert. All I hear is was. Where is he now?
What's he doing now?
Well, he's still coaching. He's
coaching the best way
he's coaching young Bill over there. So he was very intense competitor and very determined.
What's his coaching style like to your coaching style?
Look, I think it's fair to say that both Ivan and I never intended to go on to coach. So our coaching style just keeps on evolving all the time because we pick up things as we go along and incorporate them into our training. I think we're very similar in many ways, unintentionally.
In how?
I think we've got similar ideas on technique and so on. And as I said, he's training himself. I would say that Ivan is a different coach now than he was even just 2 years ago. And I think the important thing is that both of our coaching methods, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Like we don't say, this is the way that I coach. So you either fit in or you don't. We both look at individual needs and see how each lifter reacts to a particular program, either physically or mentally, and try and get the best out of them by tailoring to a certain extent the program towards what they need.
Well, that's the art of a good coach, isn't it? You sort of have to adapt to your athletes. There's no point in being black or white, because if your athlete doesn't respond well to you, then you're not meeting the objective, are you?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely right. But I mean, often it gets lost if you're coaching 20 or 30 lifters. That's why it's not ideal to have that many people, and you want to have as many coaches as you can at your club.
So how many people do you currently coach, Rob?
I'm guessing between 12 and 14.
Yep. Okay. And I was speaking to the boys the other day, and I'll ask you about it. So when you're writing the programming, will you write a basic structure for the most part, the meat and 2 veg basically, and then you'll add on your side days? So I think Matt Pitt, he's one of the guys down at Phoenix. He was saying that 3 of the days of the week, or 2 or 3 of the days, are pretty much similarly structured for all your lifters, and then on Saturdays and Wednesdays or something like that, you will have a specific day tailored to their needs, where they need to improve and so forth. Or?
Yep. That's a pretty accurate summary. Excuse me. I'd say Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are pretty well set for all of the lifters, with minor adjustments. I mean, they're not exactly the same for all the lifters, and also it depends on how many days a week the lifters are training.
Yeah.
So some guys only train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So obviously their program has to be a little bit different. I have to include something different in there for them.
Yep.
But for the guys who are training 5 days a week or 6, then Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are pretty similar. And then I use the Tuesdays and Saturdays to incorporate something different, maybe a weakness that they need to work on, whether it's physical or from technique. Thursdays I'll leave up to them. It's what we used to call active rest. They may go in there and just do a few straight snatches and a bit of stretching and whatever. I'll leave it up to them.
And Mac touched on this before, but how much do you go by off the lifter and how they're feeling? So let's say, for example, they're kind of fatigued and in the program it's got a 1 rep snatch. Okay, if they come to you and they're saying, hey, I just don't feel up to it today, is that something that you really take into consideration, or would you go ahead with the lift anyway?
No, you definitely take it into consideration, and either by feedback from the lifter or from what I observe. Obviously, if today you've got to snatch 120 and, 100 is just driven you into the ground, I'm not going to be expecting 120. Sometimes what I do is you go back and start again, and then you find that maybe on the second warm-up, on the second time up, you start to loosen up a little bit and they look a little bit better. So, and it depends to how close it is to the competition. The closer it is to the competition, the more that you stick closer to the program. So the guys will ask, is tonight STP? Yes, tonight is STP, stick to the program. Oh, yeah. Whereas maybe 6 weeks earlier, they say, oh, look, I'm feeling really good. Can I push it tonight? And we'll say, yeah, why not?
Yep. I thought, sorry, Mac, I just thought STP was Stone Temple Pilots. Great band.
I think STP was an oil, wasn't it?
Yeah, honestly, no idea, but yep.
Isn't it? STP does amazing things for your system. TDK.
Close, very close.
Tomato relish on a sesame seed bun.
So, Rob, what about your athletes and yourself? Did you ever miss lifts, and is it okay to fail in training, or are you a typical, or not a typical, but are you a coach where you're like, right, no one misses in training?
Ideally, no misses in training.
Yep.
That's the way that I was coached, that you don't miss in training.
Yep.
And that's what I try and instill into the lifters.
Because there's a debate out there. I don't know if it's just between myself or not.
and myself.
I don't really care. Sometimes, people need to learn how to win. People need to learn how to lose. People need to learn how to fail. And people need to learn how to succeed. So there is a fine line between, you'd never really want to miss. But if someone fails, is that their session over?
No, not at all. As I said, it depends on how you miss the lift.
Get out.
No, some people, you might miss the lift and you're not on tonight. Time to call it a night. See you back tomorrow. Or
again, it depends on the lifter.
Yep.
You start to get to know your lifters. Will it work with someone or won't it work with someone?
Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily always have to be that way. Sometimes you have to try and change your lifter. Some lifters, for instance, if they miss their second attempt, you think, well, that's it, they're not going to get their third. Because once they miss, they're done. But you don't leave it at that. Then you try and see, well, how can I fix that? How can I get them to, all right, you missed it. You still got one more attempt. Let's not waste it. So some things you accept as part of your lifter's nature. Some things you try and change for the better.
And that's where the debate was. I've spoken to many traditional weightlifting coaches and they're like, never miss. But then if they miss out on the platform, they sort of don't know how to rebound from that, Certainly if they're an amateur or it's their first comp, and I'm talking
Yep.
I'm not talking pro league. If they come out, they're just so nervous and they miss, and they don't know how to respond to a miss, then they don't know how to learn and grow.
Yep. I think it's preparing them as if it's going to be their first competition. We run I do anyway, a couple of rehearsals in training where we have someone who will act as a referee, give the down signal, we time it and so on. So it's as much to do with preparation as possible and also giving them information. Mm-hmm. So it's not all about them experiencing something physically. You don't learn too much from missing a lift in training. And particularly if you given a weight that's just too heavy. There's no point if the program says 120 because you want the guy to snatch 120 in competition and you're just going to give it to him and he's just going to miss it hopelessly. You don't learn from that at all. And I think with lifting too, it's also about building an aura of confidence, almost invincibility. You have to convince yourself that you can't miss.
That's
so every time you approach the weight, you just have to be totally convinced within yourself that I'm just going to lift it.
There's such a small margin of error, though, isn't there? There is. Just even that slight little bit of doubt, and it's gone. Any chance, but really? That's what I really feel when I'm snatching 33 kilos with a snatch.
I 100% agree with the word Rob used with invincibility.
Yeah.
Because I was speaking about it the other day with somebody. It might have been you, Tommy, when we were talking about lifting. Because there was a stage there in 2014, I think it was, before I had the serious kind of back injuries, had some time off, where I legitimately think I missed 3 snatches in 6 months and probably 2 clean and jerks, and I can remember them. I can remember each individual lift that I missed. And I was so confident, no matter when it was, that I would walk up, left foot under the bar, right foot on the bar, hand on, sweet, I'm ready to go. This bar's gone over my head. Or this is fine. I'm making this lift. And I would be really, really extremely surprised when I would miss. And it was normally only on the platform, and it would be a PB attempt. I missed 1 or 2 in training in the snatch in this stretch, and 1 or 2 on the platform. And I thought, as soon as I'd miss on the platform, I'd go, fuck. And then instantly, what the next thought was, well, I'll just get it next time. And it was, next time I'd be like, right, I'd grip the bar. I've already felt what this feels like. I fucked it up, but this time I'm not fucking it up. And I was just so programmed, and that my CNS was just, it was locked in. And yeah, it feels like my program's been a little bit heavier.
So where do you think that came from, that mindset?
Because the way Ivan was programming at that stage, I was in decent form as well. But just the like Rob's talking about with his programming, so we didn't go above 85% probably for that period, unless it was 2 weeks out from the comp when we test. And even then, so Ivan, for example, in that period where we're 2 weeks out from the comp, a couple of times I hit a PB or an equal PB in training 2 weeks prior, and Ivan said, yeah, that's it. Just leave it at that. Save it for the platform. So as a lifter, you're kind of like, fuck, I want to put 3 more kilos on the bar because I know I've got it. In your head, that's what you're saying. But you also don't want to, squeeze every little bit out of yourself. I think.
You don't want to leave it in the gym, as a lot of people say. But I mean, one expression I've used it to my lifters as well, which is whenever I miss the lift, the first feeling is surprise.
Yeah.
You're generally surprised that you actually missed the lift.
Yeah.
And that comes from total confidence, that when you approach the weight, you're not trying to talk yourself into, I can really do this. No, you're just going in there, and it's a matter of fact. You have that level of confidence that I'll just go out there and lift it.
Just getting it done.
So, Rob, a lot of coaches out there stand by, don't necessarily train above 85% training, and then obviously in that last 2 weeks you're going up a little bit, and then competition you do whatever you can. What's the deal there? So just training at 85% the whole time. I'm assuming, again, this is probably from a CrossFit mindset, but would you only just start to get really good at moving 85%, and then do you see a lot of failure above that? Or?
No, not really, and it's not something that you stick to religiously all the time. For me, 80% is sort of like the line that you don't really drop under very often. Yep. So you train around 80%. But then you go up and down, and if you looked at a graph in preparation for the competition, going up and down. So let's say if it's a 12-week program, the heavier week on your second week would become your lighter week by the time you reach the end, because you're slowly going up and up. So you're not sticking religiously to 80-85%. You still need to hit the single lifts and so on, and you also need to change up the reps that you do. I know guys who've snatched 100 for a triple. And if you start them first attempt 100 in the comp, they might miss it, because all of a sudden a single lift, a triple you approach as just hard work and training, and you don't even think about it. A single all of a sudden becomes, it's a single lift, there's no second chance, whatever. So you still have to put in a lot of single lifts as well. Not necessarily 100% plus, but you still need to put in a lot of single lifts just to train your mind to approach, this is one single lift, bang.
80% is also enough weight to give you a feel, enough weight that you can sort of see technical errors, and you can be consistent in your hits as well.
Yep.
So that's the way I was taught. Always 80% your base.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. You need to be able to blur the lines at some point to see where your technical errors are, I suppose.
Yeah.
80% is the base. If you're training at 80%, you're getting some improvement. Yeah.
It's good example of the mindset and the confidence thing that Rob was talking about on the weekend. Pitty, Matt Pitt, who I mentioned again before. Shout out to Pitty. He'll be stoked. Probably doesn't listen, but
that's right. Should we get him on the show? Like, pretty much one of us, isn't he?
But
Doug Pitt.
I had Jill with me. Jill, my girlfriend, has her first time watching a weightlifting comp, and Pitty missed his first lift at 117, and then so I explained to him, like, okay, so what's happened now is he's missed his first lift, so he's most likely going to come out. Do that same lift again, then he'll go up. He can't go down from here. She's like, can he go down anyway? I said, no, he's got to stay. And anyway, what happened was second lift came out, and Pitty's next lift was 122, and Jill was like, hey, isn't that guy that... I'm like, yeah, well, what's happened here is Pitty's a seasoned weightlifter. He knows that he just fucked up the lift. He's hit it so many times, so he's going to go out there and hit it. Then he's going to move up, or he's fine. Pitty missed the second lift. I said, all right, now he's fucked. now the pressure's on. And then he hit the 122. He ended up having a really good day. Hit 122 and then hit a PB in his clean jerk. So it was quite a good day for him. But that's an example of, like, knowing that you've done it so many times in training, you got that confidence.
Yep.
It's also loosely based on what other people are doing in the competition as well, isn't it?
Well, probably, would you say, it wouldn't have been on that day?
Not on that day. Actually, that particular competition you're talking about, we didn't make any special preparations for it. We had no single lifts in training for that. We just, because we're aiming at the state titles in another 7 weeks.
Yep.
So we didn't want to disrupt our preparation, but I still wanted the guys to have a bit of a hit out in competition, because otherwise it was going to be too long without the actual feel on the platform.
Yep.
So we didn't make any special preparation for it. We trained right through. We didn't taper off or do anything. And look, if he'd missed his third, wouldn't have been happy, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was the Nationals, then that's a different story.
Yeah, for sure. So what about mindset with lifters? So a lot of guys get stuck at the top end of the sport, or even mediocre lifters, amateur lifters. They get stuck on a weight, and they can't get any PBs in training for a long period of time, sometimes 2 or 3 years. What do you do with lifters like that? Do you have any mindfulness kind of mindset practices for lifters, or you just say, stick to the program, it's going to be all right?
Again, it depends on the actual lifter. Like some lifters, they need to be, coddled and patted on the back, and you can do this. Others need to kick up the ass. Yeah. So after you've known them for a while, you need to identify which is which and how you're going to get the best results. And some of it may not be the lifter, it may be the programming. You think, well, that's worked for 90% of my lifters, it's not working for him. So we've got to try something completely different to try and break through.
And what about you in your training? Did you ever have any periods where you... Before we say that, actually, what are your best lifts, just for the listeners, just to preface it, so before we go into
snatch 152.
Yep, same.
I snatched one. Good.
That's interesting, isn't it? You and I...
That's my CJ.
Story. Yeah. There's a similar story that maybe I'll tell you later. 150. I snatched 155 and walked off the platform, which really pissed me off. Yeah. So in training, it would have counted.
Body weight?
87, I did those. Yeah. Well, actually, the 152 snatch, body weight was 81.
Oh, really? Shit.
Yeah.
And
clean check 200 at 87.
Were you the youngest? Were you the lightest person to clean jerk 200? Or
at that stage.
At that stage?
Yeah.
Wow. It's not bad, is it?
What have you done, Mac? Just in general.
I've done body weight clean and jerk at 152.
You big tree.
Yeah. So did you go through any stages in your life where you were just butting your head up against the wall, where you were just stuck and your training was just not felt like
I
you
wasn't
weren't
worried.
anywhere?
I was never worried. If, like I said, I hardly ever went maximums in training. So maybe in the snatch every now and then.
Yep.
The clean and jerk, as I said, my best was 200. The last time I did a PB in training, clean and jerk, it was 125.
Really?
Yeah. After that, I never ever PB in training. I did. So I was a better jerker, particularly earlier on, than I was in the clean. So I could jerk heavier. I jerked 210 in training.
Yeah.
So, and even then, maybe I would jerk maximum was once every 18 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. So in preparation for a comp, what would you build up to?
Well, when I did 200, the heaviest I went in training was 180 for a double.
Okay.
Really? No heavy single?
Is that just because it's that heavy? It's that top end, like your central nervous system and your body just give me that shot from... Is that just because of it's so heavy? It's right at the top? Or?
Well, it's heavier, exactly. Yeah. If I was clean and jerking, let's say 125, as I said, you could do that in training and you can recover from it and so on. But you can't clean and jerk 200 in training that often, particularly at a lighter body weight, at around 85, 87.
That just baffles my mind. Like, so you've done 180, and then what makes you go, or your coach say, all right, 200's the goal? Or was it just... It just came out on the day, or is it? Right,
you get a feel of 180. I did it, and it was really comfortable.
Yeah.
So I know. All right, on the day we'll put down. Let's say first attempt, you put down 180, and we'll see how we warm up. If you're packing 170 in the warm up and it's going really light, then you say, okay, we'll start 190.
Right.
But you would have also had competition after competition after competition in the lead up. In the years prior to when you
exactly.
200, so you knew what you were capable of on the platform.
That's right. That's right. It's not as if I did the 180 double and that was the only time I ever went heavy for that whole year.
Yeah.
You had competitions every 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Something I'm forgetting.
So can I just pull you up? You said a power clean of 170. So you would power until when? Like I know some people are okay, cool. If you're clean and jerking, you are doing squats from the barbell, or
Ilya Line's a good example of that. He power cleans up to 170, 80, then he starts a squat.
So my power snatch and my power clean were terrible by that standard. So I hardly ever powered in competition. So I knew if I packed 170, that was my best.
You were on.
That was my best ever power clean. It was done in a warm up for a competition.
Yep.
But normally I wouldn't power. Let's say the day I clean jerk 200, I probably would have maybe power cleaned up to maybe one power clean or 140, and then a full clean after it, and that's it. No more than that.
And that's just to save the legs, or is that to work on finishing the pull explosively?
No, I just wasn't good at it.
Oh, right.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing in the snatch. I'd maybe power snatch up to 100, and that would be it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can definitely see the reasoning behind powering up until heavyweight.
Yeah, I can see it too, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to feel the movement. I go. Yeah. I do.
Yep.
Power snatch, full snatch, power snatch, full snatch.
I do it to keep the legs warm.
Yeah. I just and plus I've been weightlifting that long. It's not.
That's funny, Matt, because when you hit 152, hadn't you power cleaned up to 150 before that?
Yeah, and the 150. Well, it was just meant to be power clean.
Accidental.
The power clean. I went for a full, but. It was the hardest front squat I've ever done in my life.
Wouldn't recommend it.
152 front squat on cold legs.
Yeah, that's right. No knees anymore.
So let's throw over to Tommy, and you got something for us over there, Tommy?
Good, mate. Science? Yeah, bit of the GBS. Now, Rob, you familiar? Anyone call you Bob?
Anyone call me Bob? My uncles used to call me Bob, but that's about it.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Little Bobby Kabbas.
Bob Kabbas. Yeah, Spud Kabbas. So the good thing about the science is a couple of things I take away from the news, from current events. Something that's good that's happened, something not so good, or I deem it to be not so good, depending on where your opinion lies, and then something sciencey, because we all have a bit of science here, which is also a bit of fun. So the good, excuse me, CCTV footage shows a fearless 70-year-old boy punching an armed thief during a robbery in Montgomery County, US. Okay, that was the article name. The footage shows the boy literally going straight up to the robber and punching him square in the gut before the robber is obviously able to take off. But I watched the video, and he's a confident little bloke. He's 70 years old. This big Rob Kabbas talking weightlifting dude, and he's just gone straight up and punched him in the gut when he was trying to take some stuff. The segue to this is, lads, have you guys ever been in a fight off the sporting field, and what resulted in it? Rob, have you been in a fight before? Or?
No.
Yep.
Not off the sporting field, and only once on the sporting field in a footy match at school.
Yep.
So
who won that?
Well, I don't know, because I think we only got as far as grabbing each other by the collar, and you do the usual punching with the jumper.
Yeah.
And then we had about 30 players on top of us.
And you with the barbell out.
And the two of us, I think, who started it just backed off.
Yeah.
Mate, I wouldn't. I can clean a jerk over too.
And the only thing I can remember from that is one of the guys on my team, as the teachers came in to break it up, he looked around and whacked the teacher in the back of the head.
Just got too excited.
Because, well, the
That's
teacher
the only time you're going to be able to get away with it.
the teacher had been giving him a hard time, so he did that and then jumped into the pack again.
Bill, have you been in a fight?
Yeah, I got in a... None really. I never really ever get in fights. Been in a couple of scuffles that my mates, if they're, aggressive guys at a bar or whatever, But I did get the shit beat out of me once with a friend by like 20 guys, by footy side.
Oh, yeah.
Which was pretty...
Fun.
Pretty fun, yeah. I was on the phone to my girlfriend walking up a hill to go back into this nightclub that I was at. On the phone to her, and someone's walking towards you, you kind of make eye contact, you just take a step to the left and you walk past each other. That's how the world works, right? So I've taken a step to the left, and this guy just made a beeline and just chested me, like to start something,
Right.
And I turned around and just said, "Fucking watch yourself, mate," or something like that. Yeah. And he said, he did the old, "Oh, you want to have a go, do you?" Straight up, like he wanted to fight someone. And then my mate Twiggy was with me. Twiggy's about
built like a brick
5'6".
shit house.
Does the
isn't
name represent the...
Yeah, exactly. Twiggy's 5'6" and weighs about 10 kilos. And
Not the image I had of Twiggy.
Twiggy turns around and says, "Piss off, mate. Go back inside," or something like that. Yeah. Like neither of us are fighters at all.
Go back inside. Jeez, that's aggressive.
Yeah, literally.
Go away.
Yeah.
Could you
That's
please
what we're
step
like.
to the left next
We're
time?
the most limperest straight guys you've ever seen. But anyway, three guys came out and started fighting with them. They just started swinging punches, and we kind of just wrestled them down the bottom of this hill. And this is the first and only time I ever remember punching anyone in my life.
Yeah.
But I was getting punched from left and right, and this guy came up in front of me because there was a bunch more came, so 6 or 7 guys. And then I remember punching this guy straight in the face, and he fell to the ground, and I literally thought to myself, "Yes!" And then, as soon as I celebrated in my head, I got hit from behind on the deck, people stomping on me. It was funny what happened. So we got beat up by about 10 guys. We jumped up.
Real funny.
We jumped up and ran across the other side of the road. We're like, "Right, let's get out of here. That was fucked." And we had blood both coming down our faces, and a couple of girls had come over to help us out that we knew. And I hate the calling people if you're in a fight kind of thing, but there was 10 or 15 of these guys by this stage. And they were across the other side of the road, and I said to Twiggy, "We got to call the boys." I said, "Fuck this is our local nightclub."
So he
These
said,
guys
"Girls, can you come over?"
yeah. What happened was, so we're on one side of the road, the guys are on the other side of the road, and there's a parking bay in the middle, and Twiggy's brother, a good friend of mine, Matt Dunn, Roadie we call him because he looks like roadkill, and so anyway, Matty pulls up, Roadie pulls up in a taxi in the middle parking bay, super happy, he's about to go to the nightclub, we're like 20 years old, big smile on his face, looks over the side of the road, sees 20 real aggressive footy dudes yelling and screaming, carrying on, looks over the other side of the road and sees me and Twiggy, his brother, blood all over our faces, looks over at the other side of the road, looks over at us again, looks over the other side of the road and just runs at these guys.
Oh, wow.
Me and Twiggy we looked at each other, put our phones back in our pocket, fucking here we go again. And then we had to run back in and help Matt, and we just got the shit beat out of us.
Yeah. Jeez, there you go. That's insane.
So that's the fight that I've been in, and it didn't really go too well.
So, Mac, you been in a fight? The big Shrek?
Bit of backstory.
Okay.
Never lost a demerit point in my life. Had my license for 10 years. Been started many times.
Really?
Yeah, because I was the bigger dude and I was an easy target, and
There's just a lot of you, isn't there?
there's just a lot. And so I haven't taken up those offers in the past. And
Hi, sir, would you like to fight?
I challenge you to a duel. Cheerio.
Anyway, point of the story is I'm a straight arrow. Oh, that's a snort, isn't it?
Sorry.
So listen, I'm a straight arrow. I'm really not against fighting at all. And I was at this bar/restaurant once with my family, and my mum and dad were downstairs, and my brother and I were upstairs in the bar part. And this guy had a mistaken identity of my brother, and flattened him to the floor. And I got pushed over, and I was going, "What the hell's going on?" So I picked up Jackson, my brother, and I was sort of shepherding him out. And this is all on CCTV footage.
Yep.
And anyway, I've got my hands out to my side like a shepherd, and I've turned to my left to say, hey, mate, what's going on? And next minute, Jackson's gone around my right and gone to run at the dude. Anyway, they both ended up on the floor. And so I've just instinctively just gone in to pick up my brother again, and some dude just out of the corner just grabbed me by the collar, and just without even thinking, I've just gone crack with my right, picked up my brother. Anyway, with that one punch, did a lot of facial damage, and went to court and wasn't convicted because obviously, there was video footage that helped my case, saying that I was the one trying to defuse the situation.
Yeah.
But ended up having to pay a fine, and that's the only ever punch that I have and will throw. I'm not a fighter at all, but it was just instinct. Like, I've never, all the times that I've been started, it's been so easy for me to back down. I haven't even thought about it. But as soon as my brother, never been in that situation before.
Yeah, it's a different story.
As soon as he was in danger, it was just instinctive for me to get him out, and I went to pull him up, and one of the other dudes had me, and I've just, with reaction, just broken like 3 or 4 bones in his really broke his nose, fractured his cheek socket, and busted his jaw with my punch. But
fair damage.
But that's not thinking. That's an adrenaline.
Yeah, that's
punch,
right.
You know?
It's complete adrenaline. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not proud of it, and I won't be doing that again.
I like to think I could punch that hard.
What do you got? What's next, Tommy?
All right. So the bat. Cat choke slams other cat during fight.
Right. You're a bit aggressive today.
That's right.
Have you choke slammed a cat, Rob?
Do you want a cat? So this video has gone viral of 2 cats fighting out, one of them performing a WWE move, or obviously not many to, but some form of WWE move, on the other to claim the win. Now I want to talk about the wider implications of this, lads. The fact that a stupid video like this has received so many views, like literally in the millions, across the world tells me something. The world is becoming smaller-minded, okay? Do you guys feel that the negative implications of social media and viral videos, etc., outweigh the positive? Okay, so this can be related to things on Instagram, where people are self-promoting themselves by taking photos of food and all that sort of shit, and making tons of money. Bill, I know you've got some sort of a stand on this.
Yeah, I already discussed my dislike for Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, well, not necessarily Instagram,
yeah.
But Rob, what about yourself? Someone
Anything really, Instagram, Facebook, so on. Look, there's a lot of good sides to it. I communicate with my lifters through Facebook, either putting up videos or through private messages. I send their training programs for the week. But I think particularly for young people, for teenagers, there's a lot of damage that can get done out there.
Yeah,
and
100%.
And all of it, unfortunately, because it's anonymous, it's very easy to do a lot of damage out there, and while you're hiding behind some other identity.
Yeah, there's also the other side as well, where because it's so easy to upload things about yourself, I think the younger demographic doesn't really understand that stuff's up there for life. And there's definitely photos out there of me, not necessarily in a bad way, but just like make me look like an absolute ghost. I'm like, yeah, it's up there online, isn't it? Yeah.
But not only that, there's apps out there that whiten your teeth and make there's no wrinkles, and what you see is it's just not reality.
No,
you know?
not at
Talking
all.
about the old tricked up Tinder profiles, mate.
Yeah, you got me. But, and everyone's out there celebrating how good their life is, and they can't wait to share this moment on their phone, yet they're not capturing in real life. And
It's not real life.
No.
and so what it is, it's a personal thing to say, oh yeah, my life's better than yours.
Yep.
And then there's
That's all it
people
is.
sitting back going, oh, my life's really not that good. Everyone's doing this and doing that and doing that, but she's prettier than me and he's prettier than me, and
It's not good
No, it's
for
pretty than you.
it's not good for self-image.
it's
No,
really
sure.
not. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of fakeness out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Science, what do you got?
Science. So there's a long-standing joke that NASA is always 20 years from putting astronauts on Mars. Mission details shared at a recent summit shows that the space agency is actually right on schedule. A to-do list from 2015 looks remarkably similar to one compiled in 1990. One difference, NASA is now building a rocket and test driving technologies needed to get a crew to Mars. But the specifics for the longest road trip in history is not all that easy. So we had a potential candidate or an astronaut on our show a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to ask, we sort of touched on it, but we didn't really as much as I would have liked. Do you guys feel that sending people to Mars is worth the billions of dollars of expenditure and potential risk to astronauts. Rob, what do you think? Are you a sciencey man?
Not particularly, no, not even in weightlifting. Actually, you know, I mean, they always say coaching is science and art, and mine leans more heavily on the art than the science part of it. I'm the first one to admit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Look, there's something to be said for exploring things that are out there and taking on, huge assignments. So, we may need to start sending people up there soon. So
I just feel
to get
like
them off the earth.
Yeah,
as cool as I think it is, I just feel like there's a lot of stuff down here we could fix first with all that money.
Yeah, but
billions and billions.
You know, every NASA, the space race, every dollar that NASA spent on the space race, $7 was brought back into the economy. So space travel is extremely good for the economy through all the technological advancements and all the jobs created and stuff like that.
But to say it's good for the economy, I mean, the economy isn't necessarily good for the issues that we have in the world, Like
you're
some
right.
people say it's making the rich richer and the poor poorer.
No, but you just said there's things that we could spend our money on. Did you say that?
I said there's problems we could fix with that money.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if we have more money, then we can fix more
but
problems.
if we have more, but the rich are getting richer.
Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with the space program.
Smarter than know what to do with their money.
Yeah, that's true. I just bought 2 Ultimate Double Whopper burgers, so I've clearly got no idea. Let's move on.
Hey, Rob. So you're a two-time Commonwealth gold medalist, right?
Yes.
And what years were they?
1978, which is nearly 40 years ago, and 1982.
Okay.
Edmonton, Canada, and Brisbane here in Australia.
Yep. And silver at the Olympics?
Silver in 84, yeah.
Silver in 84. So tell us a little bit about 84. How close were you to the gold? How did it work out? How did your lifts go?
On the day, it probably looks closer on the scoreboard than it really was.
Yep.
Probably March, April that year, I would have thought that I would be closer to lifting more weight than I did. And then I tore my hamstring at the Olympic trials. So it was a bit of a race against time to actually get picked for the games team and just get on the platform. So at the end of it, as I said, it looks close. I think the difference was 12 kilos. So it looks close, but I think my main concern was to just move into the second spot over the third place. The guy who came third was the outright favourite for the gold medal.
Right.
He was, I think before the competition, he was probably ranked about 15, 20 kilos ahead of anybody else.
Really?
He was Japanese, and they had all the high officials from Japan filling the front rows and expecting the gold medal, and he came third. So
Wow. And what did he do wrong? Was he just made his openers only?
He didn't look sharp particularly in training, and there was something. I don't think he was injured. He just wasn't particularly sharp, and I think in the clean and jerks, they started off with a weight which they thought would tie up silver, and then they can concentrate on the gold medal. And we took a big jump, 7.5 kilos, lifted more than they expected. And then all of a sudden they thought, well, we're not interested in silver anymore. Now we've got to chase the guy for the gold because he's the favourite. And his coaches ended up giving him a weight on his second attempt, which did neither. It wasn't enough for the gold, and it was way more than he needed to cover my lift, so he missed it.
Right.
And then in the end, he had an all or nothing, or first or third go for the gold medal, which he actually cleaned 207, and but the jerk drove him into the ground.
Right.
So a very disappointed guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you're in that, when you're at that level as well, when you were competing in the Commonwealth Games, Commonwealth Championships, how comfortably did you win those gold medals?
There were two vastly different experiences, 78 and 82. 78, I was outright favourite. So anything less than a gold medal would have been like, oh, well, he didn't do that well.
Yep.
It was my first Commonwealth Games. So there's a lot more pressure, and for a different reason, because also the general manager of the whole team was Les Martin, who was the president of the Weightlifting Federation. And the day we landed in Edmonton, I saw an article where they quoted Les Martin. He was asked at a press conference, if you had to pick one athlete out of the whole Australian team, which athlete would you pick as a certain gold medal? And he picked me out as a certain gold medalist from a team that included Tracy Wickham, who was the world record holder in 1,500 metres. His
you
li-
meant for the whole every
the
sport?
whole Australian every
I thought you meant
sport.
the weightlifting.
No, for every sport.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the swimmer was favourite for the gold medal in weightlifting.
So, and his logic behind that, when I said to him, well, she's a world record holder, he said, oh, yeah, but Michelle Ford was close to her. No one was close to you. So it was
It's a
different.
lot of pressure, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So we started, I was far enough ahead on my best lift to start with conservative weights and then just build up from that. And I ended up winning it comfortably.
Okay.
Whereas before Brisbane, I had a knee operation the year before those games. And I think I was probably the first lifter to come back from a knee operation in those days. It wasn't it was like you could cut open, no holes, no keyhole surgery in those days. So it was
The first lifter to come back from a knee
a
surgery.
knee operation.
And
yeah.
what knee surgery was it? Meniscus.
Well, I had started to tear bits off the patella tendon,
Oh,
and
right.
also bits of gristle and bone had come loose and lodged behind the tendon.
Yeah.
So every time I was squatting, it was pushing through the tendon and would tear it,
Oh, right.
snap it. So I was cleaning the knee joint and stitching up the tendon.
Yeah. And
So
you
there was a lot of pressure just coming back from the injury, and then I moved up a weight category where I was ranked third
yeah.
in the Commonwealth. So it's a different sort of pressure.
Really? And tell us about how that one played out then.
Well, as I said, the guy that I was the lightest guy in the category because I'd only just moved up that weight category. Again, at Les Martin's, who was the president, at his suggestion.
And this weight category was, because the weight categories were different back
The
then.
weight categories I had always been a light heavyweight, which is 82.5 kilos.
Yep.
And mid-heavy was 90 kilos, was the upper limit. So his idea was, when you asked me before, had I ever hit a period where I was knocking my head against the brick wall? I had 4 years without a PB in training or competition or
Really?
anything.
Wow.
And had not even equaled my PB. So from 78 to 82, I hadn't exceeded my best lift. So I was just stuck and more often than not behind. And in those 4 years, I dislocated a shoulder and had the knee operation. So his idea after the Commonwealth Games trials where I competed, and he said to me, oh, look, have you ever thought about just trying to force feed, stack on a little bit more muscle and just go up to the next weight category and maybe that'll kickstart you again? And he said to me, and plus, you're not going to have to worry about weight reduction, watching your weight and coming down under the limit. So he said to me, you wouldn't have to worry about dieting, like how much are you weighing now? And at the time, I was weighing 81 kilos. So I was already 1.5 kilos under my own limit, let alone 90. And he said, well, you better go home and start eating. Which I did. I force-fed, I was having about 6, 7, 8 meals a day for the next few months until I just got sick of eating.
Yep.
And he was right, though. It kick-started the career. So the last trials we had before the games, I got a PB in the clean and jerk, the first one for 4 years.
Sweet.
And at the games, again, I only weighed 85 kilos. And the English guy who was the favourite had reduced down from 94 kilos. So it's a big
So a
big
walk-around weight of
advantage.
12 kilos difference,
Yeah.
basically.
So what was the plan, the meal plan? Did you have a set meal plan, or did you sort of like anything
It was
that you
just
could put in
eat,
your mouth?
yeah, basically.
Keep it
yeah.
PJ Rudd.
Basically, I wasn't a big eater in one sitting in those days, and I had a sweet tooth. And it's funny, one of the guys, Paul Tafari, who's trying to put on weight at the moment, I said to him, my diet included potatoes with every meal.
Yeah.
Every time you sat down, you had potatoes in some shape or form. Boiled, roasted, chips, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know-
Bill and I,
And you just force-fed.
Bill and I were having a chat before about what am I trying to say here?
clean versus
the
the
clean
dirty
versus the dirty
bulk.
bulk. Did you do some form of both of them, or was it mostly clean stuff, or you just added potatoes for everything?
I just ate, as I said, what you said before was right. Whatever I could get my hands on at any particular time, I had.
Yeah.
I had. So at that stage, I was still, I worked up to maybe 2 months before the games, and I had 2 months off work. But when I was at work, morning 10 o'clock, I'd go downstairs to the canteen. It'd be a milkshake and 3 donuts.
Oh, it's good, isn't it?
Whatever. So
So what was your
Yeah.
favourite meal during that time?
favourite meal. To be honest, I had no
We asked the hard
favourite-
questions.
I had no favourite meals in the end because I just got sick of eating. I wasn't hungry for 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you
Just
had
didn't
no
need to think
sensation.
Real sure.
You had never had. You never had a sense of hunger because there was no break between meals long enough
No.
for you to get hungry. You just had to sit there and just
It's a
shovel the
pain in
food
the ass
in.
trying to put on weight when you've got a fast
Yeah.
metabolism.
Yeah.
Can't
Oh,
stand it.
shocking.
Eating that much food.
Yeah.
Michael
Bad.
Noonan.
It's a double-edged sword.
Michael Noonan was telling me how Michael Noonan used to be a super heavyweight, and
Yeah.
like to be a good super heavyweight, he has to have to. Rob would know more about this than me, but he used to have to maintain his weight, so he stayed big. I was telling you guys the other day. He was telling me he used to, because he was a school teacher, at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock every day. So he had an hour left in class. He would be teaching his class from his desk, but he would start eating this might sound ridiculous, but like a 500-gram block of cheese to keep his calories up, to keep his weight up, because
See, that is horrendous. That sucks. Like, that's
you know
going
anything
out of your
about
way.
that? Is that
Yeah. That'd be right. Knowing Michael.
yeah?
Yeah.
Just eating cheese.
Yeah.
G'day,
he
mate.
used to
Yeah,
eat
eating cheese.
He eat a lot of everything. I mean, he's 6'4",
He's a
145
big
kilos.
dude.
145.
Oh, he's a senior guy now. Like he's an older guy now.
Yeah.
I think he was 135 or something when he was training though. Like when he was strong. He said something
It's
like that.
so much cheese. Jeez, there you go. I love it.
So what did you do when you were coming back from injuries, Rob? Like you had a shoulder dislocation and you had a knee surgery. What type of training? We get. I think our listeners like to hear the struggles that athletes go through and what they can still do in their training. So obviously you're not going to be able to. I don't think you're going to be able to squat and do
Yep.
a lot of your dynamic stuff. What were you doing to keep active?
Well, with the shoulder dislocation, I was lucky because once I'd let go of the weight, it sort of became like a catapult, and the shoulder popped back in.
Oh, really?
So it was just sort of hanging there loose. I couldn't lift it up,
Yeah.
but it was more or less back in place. So
Yeah.
that didn't need surgery. And when I came back, I was still training at Hawthorn, and we had a good relationship with the footy club there. So their physio, who I think was their physio up until a couple of years back, Barry, looked after my shoulder with treatment and so
Oh, that's
on.
cool.
But that took a fair bit. I think I popped it out in around May or so, and my next competition was January the following year. So it was, and a lot of it was just confidence too, because when I came back, I couldn't press 60 kilos.
Yeah.
So it was just starting from scratch. And whereas I'd hardly ever miss a jerk in competition after that, when I came back, it was a bit 50-50 because I just lost the rhythm and the speed, and because I'd also never really had to learn how to jerk. It came naturally.
Yep.
So when you start from scratch, you've got to learn again.
Yeah.
It's okay,
This
I
isn't as
didn't
easy
think
as it
about
used to be.
no. So that took a while. With the knee surgery, again, I just had to have it done. Actually, both knees were bad, but one was particularly bad. And I said to the surgeon, can you do both at the same time? And he said, well, if I do both, you're not going to lift at the Commonwealth Games because you need to rely on one knee a little bit to help the recovery of the other one. So,
So what exercise do you do? So when you're out with your knee, you're doing some bench and some strict presses and some
Yeah, a
strict
lot of dumbbell
pull-ups
work.
and
a lot of dumbbell work. And the main rehab I think I remember doing was just sitting on a bike and just cycling for 45 minutes, an hour or whatever. Just
So you weren't really too worried. You were just trying to get the rehab done and keep the upper body relatively strong. How much? It's a good question.
And it was new territory too. As I said, I can't think of any national standard lifters or lifters of any standard who'd had a knee operation and had to come back. And even the surgeon had no idea. If I said to him my best squat was 100 kilos or my best squat was 300 kilos, nothing meant. It meant no difference to him. You couldn't relate to it. So he had to rely on, on me to a certain extent as well, to know how much to push and how much to hold back. And
It's so interesting considering that's only 35 years ago or something you were saying? 35?
Yeah.
About 35.
With the medical advancements.
35 years ago, and
81.
you used to, until Rob, or like in Australia anyway, like especially football and all these really dynamic sports, you do your knee, career's over. You know, John Coleman, the greatest AFL footballer
That's
who ever
it.
played,
Perfect example.
some say, did his knee, 100 games in, never played again.
Yep, that's a perfect example.
Funny, you
Are you
just
saying
take
back then?
Well, just how short of a time span it really is, 35 years, and how now, today, we think of any injuries quickly fixed, and,
Yes.
ACLs now
Yeah.
they can fix, and
Yep.
with the Lars surgery, it's,
Yeah.
6 weeks, and they can be playing AFL football again.
And they truly recommend like resistance training. That's the
Yep.
best thing you can do to get back into it. So I mean, an injury like yours nowadays, I don't know what it was exactly, but it could have been 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and then you're back on and winning gold at the Olympics. So did you have any ongoing stuff, any ongoing issues with your shoulder? I remember you said you popped it out again. Because obviously after a dislocation, there's a bit of damage with the tissue.
Nothing particularly serious. Actually, when we were speaking before and I said my best snatch was 155, but I'd walked off the platform with it. And I was so annoyed that rather than putting it down as I should have, I threw it back on the platform just behind my head, and I
At 155.
did.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I
Tossed it.
Twirled it on you, just spun around your finger like a basketball.
and I did that same shoulder again, but not too badly. That was the day I clean jerked 200. So
Hey, this is funny because Rob re-injures his shoulder clean and jerking. Snatching 155 kilos. I want to give a shout out to one of my best mates, who has a similar injury to Rob. Had to get a shoulder reconstruction as well from popping his shoulders out. And the second time he popped his shoulder out, swatting a fucking fly. Such it was.
Yeah. It was a big fly.
But that's legit. He was walking down the street, swatted a fly off the back of his head, popped his shoulder out. He called
Dad.
Yeah, I called him to see what was happening, and he told me about it. I started pissing myself laughing.
How was he holding his phone?
Genuinely pretty upset. No, this is like a couple
Just with his
days
feet?
You got two arms.
Oh, yeah, you do. Oh, God, that's bad.
So, what am I doing? So, what about programming, Rob? So, with your athletes, we're just talking about bodybuilding, like as an accessory exercise or something you can do while you're injured. How much accessory stuff and how much do you do? Lots of bodybuilding in your programming for the boys, or is it pretty much squats and Olympics and pulls, or how do you program?
if they're only training 3 times a week, then you've got to focus on the main exercise and hope they get enough out of that. But if they're training 5-6 sessions a week, then you've definitely got more scope to do a lot of the accessory type exercises. But you can work with dumbbells, particularly for the shoulders. Mm-hmm. Some bench, some don't. It depends again on their upper body. Mm-hmm. So we use the more time you have, you can't just snatch and clean and jerk all the time anyway. So you've got to include some of that stuff and train it from a different angle. So it's just in case if you're snatching and jerking and you go out of your normal alignment, the muscles are strong enough to protect you.
So if you were to triage, what's the most important accessory block? I mean, obviously it's going to be if somebody's really shaky overhead, you might do some more shoulder strengthening upper body exercises, for example. But like if you're talking glutes and hamstrings, lower back, upper body, like what's your most important?
What's your number one?
What's your number one if you had time with your athlete?
I think upper body, because the rest gets enough work probably through squats and pulls and snatches and clean jerks. So upper body and more shoulders and triceps and so on. So I would say presses, strict presses, maybe presses behind the neck, lateral raises with dumbbells, and bent over rows.
And bodybuilding styles, say like a 4x8, 4x12, what are your rep schemes?
Normally maybe 3 sets of 8.
Okay.
Yeah, just
so getting a little bit of size, but still on near the strength zone. Yeah.
It's interesting you said behind the neck strict press. There's a lot of misconception out there with that exercise, isn't there?
It can be. I'm careful with that because it can irritate your shoulders. Right. So if you have trouble with your shoulders, it's probably something you want to do with a bit of care because it can really irritate shoulders. Yeah.
So why would you use that then, in a sense, in comparison to something else?
Because you're training your shoulders from a different angle, and normally do it with a wide grip. So it's like your snatch grip.
Okay.
So it strengthens you in that specific position.
So behind the neck snatch grip press. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. See, I've heard that behind the neck pressing it's the full range of the shoulder joint neck, and it should be really beneficial. I didn't know that it can irritate your shoulders and stuff, but yeah, it's something that I use every now and then. Let's have a look at these puppies. Okay, cool. Yeah.
And what about? So you're talking about athletes that are seasoned weightlifters, and you've got them training 5 or 6 days a week. Do you ever throw in? What's your theory on double days? So I actually asked because I'm genuinely interested myself. I train 5 days a week. I like to rest Thursdays and Saturdays, but I was thinking about on the Wednesdays and possibly Saturdays to do. Well, not a Saturday, but a Wednesday, maybe even a Friday, do a double day. So the second half of the day to come back and do upper body or bodybuilding, a little bit of accessory for lower back, stuff like that. But what are you ever use double days for yourself or any of your athletes?
I train double days, but mainly when I had days off from work.
Yeah.
So I never tried to work and do double days. Well, actually I did try it, then I stopped it because it was just
too much.
too much of a rush to get in the gym. You get into the gym too early. I was getting into the gym at 7 in the morning, trying to snatch at 7 in the morning, and then rushing to get to work by 9 o'clock, and then you try and do the afternoon session again. So that wasn't working. So I did the double day training when I had time off from work, and before the Olympics I had 6 months off work. So I was doing 6 sessions in the morning and 3 sessions at night. So I was doing 9
It's tough
sessions
double
a week.
days. You've really got to be smart about it, and you can't sustain it for long. It's sort of, in my experience, it was my double days ended up killing myself and my CrossFit. But I would recommend double days, but for like a 4 to 6 week sort of chunk, and then
maybe a little bit longer, because it's going to take you 4 to 6 weeks to get used to it.
I'm talking from a CrossFit background when you're metcotting and you're doing strengths and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
I think it takes a good 4 to 6 weeks to just get used to doing double day training, and any benefit that you're going to get out of it is going to be in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And you've got to start off carefully. When we first started double day training, again, no one else in Australia was doing it. So we had no reference point, no one to talk to or anything like that. So when we started doing double day training, it was only twice a week. Tuesdays I used to have off from work. And then the other day was Saturdays. So I used to do, the morning session was very basic, just a little bit of pressing, a few power cleans, some good mornings and so on. And then towards the end, when I was doing full on 6 sessions in the morning, it would be snatch, clean, jerk, squats, pulls, the works.
Okay. Cool.
But you need as much rest time as possible. It doesn't work if you're running around and you're not getting the rest period in between. So I used to train in the mornings, go home, have lunch, sleep, and then come back for the
For those people out there doing double days now, would you say quality is better than quantity? Would you rather have one red hot crack at one session a day rather than coming back in the evening and being lethargic and unmotivated and just going through the motions? Do you see there's benefit in that? Or would you say to that athlete, just focus on or make one more quality rather than increasing the
if you can put in a quality session in the morning, do it. If you can't, then don't do it. Just come in and do it at night. And even the night sessions, it's like my coach used to say, get in there, do your training quickly and get out. So the quicker you get your training done, the better. The less rest periods in between sets and reps.
Less stress on the mind as well, I would say.
Yeah, it's hard to stay focused. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
After 2 hours in the gym, your mind is starting to wander. You can't focus.
Sure. I think people really tend to forget sometimes with strength training that most of it isn't about that rest period, that recovery, that anabolic state. Training more, touching on what Mac is saying, is never usually a good way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The rest period is very important. Sleep,
eating well.
Yeah. 9:30, 10 o'clock, I was in bed most times when I was competing.
Yeah.
It's good.
All right, cool. Should we go to, what do you got there, Tommy?
I got a bit of a riddle. You like riddles, Bob?
I can take them or leave them.
Oh, very good. All right, well...
It's not the one with the stamp again for the third time, is it, Tommy?
Stamp! All right, well, how about this bad boy? A dad and his son were riding their bikes and crashed. 2 ambulances came and took them to different hospitals. The man's son was in the operating room and the doctor said, I can't operate on you. You're my son. How is that possible?
It's a dream.
It's not a dream. Genuinely happened.
The man's son was on the operating table, and the doctor said...
A dad and his son were riding their bikes and they crashed. 2 ambulances came and took them to different hospitals. The man's son was in the operating room and the doctor said, I can't operate on you. You're my son. How is that possible?
Because someone in the car went to the hospital and I've won it!
You are so wrong.
The guy really?
Wrong. The answer is genuinely staring at you in the face.
It was you!
No. Well, what do you need to make someone?
A woman and a man.
So
the doctor was a woman.
The doctor was his mum.
Far out.
How good's that though?
Are we all sexist?
Nah, he had 2 dads. All right, what about this one? If I drink, I die. If I eat...
The stamp.
Yeah, it's a stamp. If I drink, I die. If I eat, I am fine. What am I? Robert Kabbas training in the Commonwealth Games? Or?
This
one's tough. This one's tough.
If I drink, I die.
Yep. If I eat, I am fine. What am I?
You're fine, but not alive.
Ooh, Mac is on something here. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that face. Yeah, you're in a state.
I've given up.
I'm fire.
Fire.
So if fire drinks, it dies. But if it eats, it's good. You know how fire's like
Yeah.
eat stuff?
Yeah, but you don't really. A fire doesn't really drink water.
Yeah, that's a shitty one. Real shit. Sorry.
You're really clutching at straws.
That's being too
All right,
smart.
all right. Yeah. So what goes all around the world but stays in one corner?
Have a guess of what we've been giving him shit about.
What goes all around the world?
But stays in one corner. Postage stamp. That is correct, Rob.
Tommy's like, that's our favourite
Very
one because
good.
Tommy used it 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I said, yeah. I just think it's a really
We
good
got
riddle.
bad memories.
Especially if it's Australia Post delivering to the next suburb, it would go around the
Yeah,
world.
that's very true.
Cop that, Australia Post.
Dickheads.
So let's. Should we go to 9 from 9?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Mac.
Mac Daddy.
So Rob, we got 9 questions from each of us. 3 from each of us. And Mac starts us off.
Rob, what is your morning ritual?
My morning ritual is to get up, shower, shave, and get Michael ready for school and take him to school.
Beautiful.
That's easy.
Not once you meet
Nothing.
Michael.
Yes.
If you had one day left on the world, how would you spend it?
In the world or on the world?
On the world. We're in the world.
So you're
Where-
standing
On the,
top
I
of
would
the
say
world?
on the planet or in the world. That sounded really strange.
Yeah, it's really strange.
If you have one day left to live,
Yes.
what would you do?
Where are you living?
I'll probably just spend it with my family.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a given.
Hates that response.
It's the first response.
Yeah, but it's not good.
All right, how would I spend it?
Yeah.
Okay, I would
Leisure.
probably.
Cocaine and hookers, come on.
I would probably maybe take one last trip to Egypt.
Great.
Cool, nice.
There you go.
How quick's the flight to Egypt these days?
Well, I would just make it
25
there in time to.
25 hours. But the time difference.
Yeah, I would be counting on the time difference.
Yeah.
Hey, whereabouts in Egypt were you from?
Alexandria.
Okay. No idea what that is.
It's on the Mediterranean.
Is it closer to the pyramids of Giza?
No.
Is that the
Well, Alexandria is not far from Cairo.
was
yeah.
it the Library of Alexandria that had the book that burned all the books with the history of the world?
And the new library is sensational.
Really?
In Alexandria.
Yeah.
We were there 6 years ago. Fantastic.
It's one of the Library of Alexandria. I don't know who burnt the library down, but it had all the records like dating back further than we have any records.
right, okay.
It's like the biggest,
Cover up.
And
the biggest kick in history's guts.
Yeah.
And it was purposely lit fire.
I don't know the story behind the burning of the book of
Yeah,
the,
I should
the
know
Library
it,
of
but
Alexandria.
That's
but I
really
don't.
interesting.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. These rapid fire. If you have you have $1,000 left, what do you do?
$1,000 left.
Yeah.
Is that still one day to live as well?
No, it can be as you just have $1,000 left.
$1,000 left.
I don't really understand this one.
Yeah,
My
it's-
first priority would be get a job.
Mate, it's not.
I'm
not
sorry.
your question.
Fair enough.
I'll explain it after Rob answers.
All right, so it's a quick fire. It's $1,000 left, and then what? You broke.
It's up to you.
Oh.
it's
1,000.
kind of about how you answer it, I suppose.
Yeah. 1,000. God, this is supposed to be rapid fire. Isn't it?
Yeah.
We're
Counting
not
on
really
you, mate.
firing.
Quick.
Yeah. All right. $1,000 left. I would probably just spend it. That's. And I think a lot of people. A lot of people that know me would probably say, "Yeah, that's probably true."
Yeah.
And the reason why I ask is because I would just go and invest it. I didn't give you anything. Like I want to know who's sort of business minded and who's more playful minded.
I'm not business minded.
Yeah, and so some people might just say, "Oh, bugger, I'm going to go jump out of a plane and then have cocaine and hookers," and that's okay. Me, I'm going to turn that $1,000 into $1 million somehow.
Yeah. No, I would probably spend it and worry about it the next day.
Yeah,
I like that.
cool.
Alrighty.
Bill.
So my questions, Rob, are first one is your favourite destination in the world. Can be a little town, can be a country, can be anywhere. Favourite destination?
Okay, I've got a couple: Egypt and Tasmania.
Tasmania. Really? Tasmania is supposed to be just beautiful, very like New Zealand with the greenery and rolling hills and
Yeah, I think
landscapes.
it's probably the only place in Australia where you feel that you're in a different place. You can go from Melbourne to Sydney to Brisbane to Perth, and there's a little bit of difference, but it's pretty much similar. But Tasmania, I think, is the only place with a difference.
Really? And Egypt, because...
And Egypt.
you
I
just
just,
love it.
get a bit of nostalgic every now and then.
Cool. That's fair enough. Okay, so similar vein. So your dream destination, somewhere you haven't been, but it's the number one on your bucket list?
Somewhere where I haven't been, Paris.
Paris. Beautiful.
Yeah, Paris, maybe New York, but Paris, man.
When you go to Paris, you have to check out the catacombs of Paris.
All right.
It's an underground mine shaft that's filled with remains of human bodies, skulls and bones, as like a decorative
Very
thing for
uplifting.
when they. It's like kind of like it's artistic throwback to when they used to stuff bodies down in these mine shafts when they had the plague,
Okay, so it's not ancient. It's
but it ended up they took all the bodies out. They said we can't do this, and then years later they made it as like a tourist attraction to tell the story.
Okay.
It's a
because I know in Alexandria they had the catacombs, but they were from Roman times.
yes. And the last question is: if you were on a desert island, you have 3 things to keep you sane. So, you've got your water and you're alive. You got water and food. So 3 things to keep you sane.
Do I have the internet on this side?
Well, you can request it. You can request a box, a Wi-Fi box.
All right, a set of weights,
Yep.
the internet, and paper and pencils.
Cool.
Alrighty. Biggest role model growing up?
Biggest role model growing up, probably my dad.
Alright. Why is that?
Because I don't remember anyone looking up to anybody else. So it's just I guess a reflex answer. He always seemed to do and say the right thing, and we had a good relationship.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
When I used to have spare time, I used to like to draw.
Okay, cool. Anything particular or?
No, just sketching.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're a graphic designer and an artist.
I'm a graphic designer, but not a lot of call for sketching these days. It's all computer based. And,
I used to draw a lot of mazes as a kid.
All right.
Really tough mazes. Yeah. And finally, if you could invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive. I would say
family not included. Family's already going to be there.
family's
Can't
going to
say
be there. Oh, okay.
Can't say family.
All right. I was going to say my coach, get a few tips from him. But
Okay.
okay, 3 people dead or alive who... Yeah, I'm not big on hypothetical questions. I just tend to... 3 people.
We need to start sending these.
Yeah.
Don't talk about sending them in advance.
Yeah, rapid
There's
fire.
no right or wrong.
I know there's no right or wrong. I'm just trying to
But
think.
everything you've said so far is wrong.
Look, I'll come if you want, Rob.
Hey, free dinner, I'm up.
Yeah.
Your shout.
All right. 3 people dead or alive. God.
Really tough. Really tough.
I have no idea.
And
tell you what,
where can they find you, Rob?
There's 3 pretty attractive blokes looking at you right now, mate. Eat a lot of donuts and milkshakes.
No, that's right.
That's right.
It's a very difficult question.
Let us know later.
When you're editing it.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's pretty much it from us, Rob. Is there anything you want to plug? Phoenix Weightlifting?
Phoenix Weightlifting Club. Look, we're doing pretty well as a club. I think we're getting a lot of... At the moment, we're getting a lot of requests that we probably can't meet, mainly because... or particularly if it's someone who's starting off from scratch, we get a few requests. Can I come and try weightlifting or whatever? We've heard about Phoenix, and it's mainly due to the fact that we need to give them, appropriate attention. And at the moment, the coaches, time-wise and lifter-wise, are pretty well stretched. So, so we let through a trickle, I suppose. We're not being elitist or anything like that. It's just that if you bring someone into your club, you want to make sure they're getting, value for money and getting good advice. So we've probably got a couple of new ones at the moment, and that's about it. Yeah.
Cool. And where can people find you? I know you're not a man of Instagram. Anything you want to give to the listeners?
Can find me.
Yeah. The Alexandria Library.
No, I can be reached through the Phoenix website, I guess,
cool.
if people...
Cool.
Yeah.
It's good.
PhoenixWeightlifting.com.
Beautiful.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Rob.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for your time.
You got me in first.
Alrighty. And that's a wrap. So, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully you got a little bit out of that one with Robert Kabbas. He's a super guy. He's done a whole heap in the sport of weightlifting in personal achievements and also in coaching achievements. And, hopefully there's some good resources there for you. So, if you like the show, please go and subscribe on iTunes. Without subscriptions, guys, without listeners, without downloads of our shows, then this show won't be around forever, because at some point we have to get more sponsors to basically keep us alive. We want to bring you guys cool content with cool people and get to know them a little better. And help us do that by first, easiest thing you can do, going on and subscribing. Also, our show notes of the show. So any link that we need, any link that you need or you would like from the show, from anything that we discussed, will be found at www.adventurefittravel.com/podcast. It's all there. Also, if you're up for it, join our mailing list while you're on the website. That way you'll be up to date with everything Adventure Fit Radio, Adventure Fit Travel, and all that good stuff. That's about it. See you next week.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.